name's Kate Muckenthaler. I'm a senior strategist here at Trend Micro. I'm about to hit my 9-year anniversary in September, which is insane. I've had several different roles within the company. I'm customer facing, I'm partner facing, I'm distributor facing. So really any questions y'all have about anything, please let me know. And then Zach, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of a technical strategist focused on the channel area. I've been with Trend for almost 14 years, done a lot of different things. And, most of our product focused stuff and channel alliances and some of those different strategy areas. Happy to discuss how our technical stuff can fit in with different initiatives and things that you might have going on. So.
Awesome. So today we're focusing on a bit more of a thought leadership type session. Now we are going to do some work in the console today for y'all to provide some more context than a demo. But the chat is open. If you have questions, though, I do ask that you use the Q&A just because I get a little pop-up and it's easier for me to know that someone asked a question. Whereas if it's in the chat and people get really chatty, I might lose your question. So Q&A is open again. So open dialogue, open conversation if you need anything. And then you might see Emma Backey popping her head in case she needs anything. She's one of our marketing people. So awesome. Let's jump in. So we're focusing on the shift to proactive security. And there's a couple kind of different ways we can take this conversation. But really, I think what's driving the shift into proactive is really a couple of years ago with XDR and the threat hunting type conversation, I think was like an appetizer to it. But now that a lot of vendors are focusing on the attack surface conversation and customers are like, how do I get more visibility? How can I see more? How can I understand more? How can I get better context? Things like that. Now we're really pushing that proactive side. So what does proactive versus reactive look like? And I think proactive is very much focused on behavioral changes. When I say behaviors, like behaviors of the SOC teams or the security teams or the IT teams. When they wake up in the morning, when they attack their day, what are they thinking about? What are they focusing on? What tools are they using? How are they getting their information, their threat intelligence, their context? What are their priorities? What's their communication like with their leadership? What's their expectations? Do they have services? Do they have, maybe an MSSP? Do they have just themselves and the internet? Those are all the types of behavioral changes that we're seeing. And so like a proactive kind of admin would be like, what are the chances we'll be breached? Or when was the last time we patched our servers? What have we fixed since our last penetration test? Do we need to evaluate cloud hosts? So there's a little bit of curiosity there that's driving that need to say, what else can I learn? What else can I see? What else can I do? Whereas reactive is focusing primarily at the product level. And it's very, protection layer based. So, I installed protection layer software, checkbox. Or we have cyber insurance. I don't need to worry about it because I have insurance, which is a very, very outdated, that's a whole different session that I'm not going to get into, but it's a very outdated way of thinking. My alerts are fine-tuned. So if anything comes in, I can respond to it. I'm not worried about it. And then I'll investigate alerts as they come in. So I'm not going to spend any time in my security tools until my security tool tells me that I need to. And frankly, when I think of this reactive mindset, it's like, it reminds me of this guy right here, where I just hear that studio audience chanting, set it and forget it. You know what I mean? Like, and I hope I don't get copyright infringement on that. But just, that's what I hear. And it's so frustrating because security is no longer that type of conversation. And go ahead, Zach. Did you want to add something?
Well, I was going to say too, I think one of the things from working with customers and feedback and stuff too is that the shift into the proactive side from that reactive, a lot of it is, I'm sure you're with a lot of your customers, they're going, how do I do more with less, right? Because they're reducing headcounts, they're doing these different things, and really, the shift into like cloud and DevOps and automation has really kind of triggered a lot of, well, okay, how do I do security better? How can I be more proactive? Because if I can reduce what can go wrong, then I can do more with what I'm being forced to be shifted with, right? So if they have financial constraints and hey, I don't have as many people as I used to have, or I'm having to run lean and mean and things like that, talking to them about a proactive security stance is actually going to be a much better conversation than just, okay, hey, how can we reduce what you're doing and some of those other things, but really still have a better protection stance without doing necessarily as much on that reactive side as they have been.
I think that's such a good point, Zach, because I think the budget constraints of the last probably 2 years and that shift towards do more with less. Because previously, I think security vendors, and I'm guilty of this because I used to sit on the sales side, if a customer wasn't like confident in their security posture, the solution was just to sell more protection layer. Oh,
Yeah.
you have server, but you don't have network, or you have network, but you don't have cloud, or you have cloud, but you don't have email. And a lot of organizations, they just can't afford to just bolster on more and more tools, not only from a money perspective, but from a staff and resource perspective. And so now it's like, okay, well, we've got what we got. How do we make the most of it?
Exactly.
And that's where that proactivity comes from.
Yep.
So that's a perfect point. I'm going to dive into a little bit of a technical example. This is just the slide I got. Please do not focus on too many of the details because I'm not going to go too far into it. But if you think of like XDR on the right-hand side as that, I'm going to say, and this might be a little controversial, that XDR is a reactive technology. It's not as proactive as we thought. And part of the reason why is in order for XDR to work, you have to have an event. Something has to trigger XDR for it to be meaningful, for it to cause an action within a SOC. And so you're kind of just sitting there waiting for something to happen. But when it does happen and you figure out why it happened and what steps you need to take to reduce the chances of that happening again, maybe you do a postmortem, maybe you do a threat investigation, maybe you do some intelligence investigations. Then you go into your attack surface and you start making those changes. And now you're being proactive. And then an XDR alert comes in and you're like, okay, something happened. So let's go back to ASRM. And it's just building that cycle, which again funnels that proactive behavioral change. So that's kind of the relationship that we're seeing more and more as cybersecurity vendors start having more of that conversation around attack surface. And I mean, you guys can read numbers on your screen. I'm not going to go through every single one, but there's a lot of data out there that really pushes for the need for attack surface management, for visibility, just because customers don't understand the totality of their environment. They can't protect what they can't see. But with their existing tools, they really can't see as much as they think. And so this is why these tools and these third-party integrations and all these extra ways to kind of funnel in that information into one place, and I'm kind of going down that platform conversation now, but into one place, again, gives them the ability to do more with less in one place with fewer resources and smaller staffs. That's why this is such an important conversation to be having with your customers, because not only does everyone benefit from it, this is very quickly becoming a cybersecurity standard, and for very good reason. Again, don't focus too much on the technical stuff, but like different areas of your attack surface really help you leverage like where your critical needs are. So imagine that you have to clean your house. And I'm one of those people who like doesn't clean. Well, first of all, I really don't clean my house because I have maids. But if I don't clean my house, it'll be a week. And when I sit down and I'm like, okay, I'm going to clean my house today, where can I do the most work? Is it my kitchen? Is it my bedroom? Is it my bathroom? Is it my guest room? Is it my living room? Is it my laundry room? What room needs the most attention? And that's kind of what attack surface does. It gives you an opportunity to understand like what the situation is so that you can go and attack that situation in the way that makes the most sense, that has the most impact, that provides the most, the most benefit. So all your different sources of attack surface are kind of like a different room in your house. It's like, where do I need to spend the most of my time? For me, it would definitely be
and I think that ties in really well to that analogy, because a lot of customers going, where do I start? Right? They're so overwhelmed of where do I start at? Where am I going to have the biggest impact? Where can I, by like right now, by putting in this amount of effort, am I going to get the biggest return on my investment, right? So how can I, move the most of the needle as far as being proactive and being able to not worry about these different areas of my infrastructure? And I think that's one of from a business standpoint, like what attack surface really brings in, and the feedback I've gotten working with partners that are working with customers and in those implementations.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because I remember when we first launched this like 2 years ago, and I was working with different organizations on, we called it external attack surface management. EASM was the first iteration of this. And I would reach out and be like, hey, I can do a free assessment, like for Churn Micro customers, I can do a free assessment on your external, like your internet facing assets. And they're like, what are those? How do I get those? I've never seen that. I've never heard of it. And to your point, it's like, where do I even start? You're going to start with the place that's the most critical. And we're going to show you, but you get the context and like the criticality levels of these alerts. So this is where this value really comes in, especially with Vision One. Now we're kind of, if you can't tell, we're transitioning into a product pitch. But yes, there's 5 main categories. Oh, let me stop sharing my screen because I'm going to pass it to you, Zach.
Yep.
There's 5 main like categories of attack surface data. While Zach's pulling that up, there's users, there's internet facing assets, there's your devices, like your endpoints, your servers, there's your cloud applications. And I think the biggest one, especially lately, is cloud assets, like your misconfigurations within your cloud host. Oh my goodness. Like all of the customers that we migrated into the cloud, and I speak from the partner perspective, all the customers that y'all migrated into the cloud over the last 5 years, how many of them during that project prioritized security? Probably 5 to 10%. So a majority of your customers have not evaluated the misconfigurations. And that's like the number 3 cause of events within a customer these days, something like that, something crazy. And no one's talking about it.
But in the cloud, it's the number 1, right? So the number one, like 99% of any of like the cloud breaches that have happened have actually been due to misconfigurations, right? There's very little attacks and things that we're actually seeing that people are actually doing anything innovative or anything like that. And why would you, right? Like if you can go and you can look at, I know a lot of people think, oh, hey, I made my storage bucket. So whether that's an Azure Blob or an S3 in AWS or Google Cloud Storage, and it's not public, cool. But it's set up that anybody that has one of those hyperscaler user accounts can access it. And they think kind of like security by obscurity, hey, no one's going to do it. Well, the bad guys are literally scanning for every single one of those storage locations that all you have to have is the free account and you can access it, right? So yes, you know what? Hey, it's not publicly accessible from anybody on the internet, but the millions of people that have cloud accounts can now access it, right? So things like that and those types of areas, the amount of stuff that's just going from there. And this is, so I just pulled up, this is the full platform of Vision One. If you haven't seen it yet, I know we've been speaking to partners over the last year as more and more of our different parts of the Point product line are integrated and onboarded into this. From, where it started from a threat investigation standpoint and everything here with workbenches and XDR and what Kate did bring up beginning, this is where we started for what's coming in and endpoints. And it's a great thing because we can see it, you can react to it, know what's happening, and then be able to take steps so it doesn't happen again, right? We can set up automations and things that if we see the same type of attack happening, it goes from there. And that's evolved, though, into saying, okay, well, if we're seeing that and we're knowing how to be able to deal with a security incidents coming in again and again, why is it continuing to come in and in again, right? And so now is that taking that extra kind of step up and let's look at the environment and why those attacks are susceptible, right? So now, as she was saying, okay, hey, here are the different areas that this goes into. We have the different views up here. So as you're bringing in like the executive dashboard and the risk overview, so you can come in and you can show this to everybody from an executive standpoint. They have a really high level. Here's what the overall risk of the organization is.
C
And
levels, leadership, they love graphs. They
they
love
love graph.
pictures.
They
They like
love it.
charts. They like numbers. They like, you know what I mean? So we got
Mhm.
plenty of it on the screen.
Yep. And when you set up and they're setting up their original account, you're able to say, okay, hey, I'm in manufacturing. So let me compare to other organizations that are in manufacturing, right? Or what are other organizations that have the similar number of employees that I do? So like, where do I compare to my peers, right? In these other organizations. And those are all based in here and based on that self-reporting information that we get, right? As well as, yes, hey, it comes in and it looks at all these different areas, these things. And yeah, we can look at exposure overviews, attack overviews. And from a partner standpoint, being able to help your customers understand, where they're at, what's going on, and what maybe they want to prioritize, and they can make those choices then in what they want to do. So whether that's something that they want to go take on themselves to try to go through and say, you know what, hey, here's different things that I can do to reduce my risk because I can look at different risk summaries. Here's the areas that I can look at, and it's pretty easily color coded, these areas that are here, risk reduction measures on the operations dashboard that literally walk them through, here's some steps to take. And they can choose, do I want to do this on my own? Or do they want to pay you as a partner to maybe deliver some services to jumpstart their risk journey, right? So if say,
Yes.
okay, hey, you know what, let me write a scope of work. I can do these things over the next 30, 60, 90 days for you and to help you go from having a risk score of maybe that 58 on average to get you down to and try to get you to a target of like a 25 or a 30 if we do all these things, right? So the lower score is better, of course, right? In this, right?
Yeah.
You want that. So if you can help them reduce that, that's huge, right? And if they
I
go,
think that's like a really good. I got two comments really quick, Zach, on the screen.
sure,
So I think for one, kind of going off of that, if you're a partner who wants to talk security with an account or a prospect and you don't know where to start, leveraging this assessment, so like you can run this as an assessment,
yep,
gives you all of the data that you need to start a conversation, to start a plan, saying these are your areas of weakness, this is where I can help, and this is how I can help. I use this tool all the time, even with our existing customers, as like hey, you're doing great here, but we got to do some work over here. So great, just agnostic conversation starter. But since you brought up risk score, a really popular term. So the industry term for this technology is attack surface management. At Trend Micro, we call it attack surface risk management. And the reason why we have that word risk there is because we are quantifying that risk level, that big 54 that Zach's kind of highlighting to and talking about. That's the risk score out of 100 that quantifies all of the data together. We have an algorithm that we publish if you're interested, but it puts a variable onto what that information actually means. It's not just a data dump of here's some visibility. You know what I mean? Like it's context. And that's why we call it attack surface risk management, in case anyone's ever curious what the differentiator is. Because I do get that question a few times.
yeah.
All right, Zach, sorry, back to you.
No. It's that's great stuff. And I was going to say too, one of the big pieces with that is, so yes, this is trend microvision one, right? But at the same time, we know that your customers have other tools in place, right? So things like being able to do like Active Directory or Intra ID, as well as like Office 365, as far as third-party data sources to help populate this risk measurements. There's ways and configurations there, and that doesn't require any agents. It just requires API connections, gives extremely good context to that risk scoring, right? So being able to use some of these third-party data sources to be able to help influence that, doing these things, if they do have anything like some different vulnerability scanners and things like this that are already in there, there are some huge pieces in here that we can now tie into to help influence that. So, yes, if your customers have a big, robust Trend Micro deployment, that's great. But if they don't, we can still likely do a lot of great insights for them without having to deploy a bunch of agents and things like that to be able to help them have an idea of what's their risk factor, and then how could it be
Mhm.
influenced by possibly moving to something like our endpoint security and things like that as well too, right? So there are a lot of different things inside there. And I know we're getting close here on time, so Kate mentioned the assessments, and so there is the full attack surface uh, risk management piece, and we can do the full out blown assessment. There is also kind of a kind of appetizer assessment here that's a cyber risk assessment, and we'll actually have a slide here in just a second as I wrap this up. But this is something that is built in here into the console, and it is something that can actually be a co-branded assessment for you as a partner. And we're going to share some information on that. So it's something that we can help co-brand and get you campaign materials and stuff to send out to your clients. And then if they sign up for it, it would be a co-branded landing page and everything. But then when they go in and they do this, and it kind of gives like a base level of some of these without all the context. So if you're looking at something like the cloud posture assessment here, it's a very high level. It doesn't get into all the same details that maybe the attack surface was. And this could be a way to kind of say, okay, hey, maybe this would be a free assessment. And would you like to do a more paid engagement to go in depth and look at like that scope of work for us to do that jump start and then get them to look at buying attack surface risk management as a subscription, right? So that's kind of the steps as a partner of what you could do and what goes through there. But this is a really great tool set, again, that we can help enable you to use and be able to have. And so it's, yes, for cloud, have stuff for exchange. We have at-risk endpoints, phishing simulation stuff, as well as even external attack surface, right? And this is those internet-facing assets and being able to look at those reports and let them know, hey, are your things that are literally facing the internet that have your domain name, how at risk are they, right? So, and that's whether or not you're using some third party to host it or you're hosting it yourself, because anything that's being registered with your domain name, we can go in and look at. So
I think that is honestly, so like all of these are great conversations, but the external attack surface assessment, one, all you have to do is plug in the root domain to the console, give it like 24 hours to populate, and you're off to the races. But this is literally the funnest conversation, because organizations that are large or they have mismanaged networks will have like marketing pages. They'll have the most random things that they are responsible for. One of the times I found it was a manufacturing company that had a volunteer curling club tied to their domain. And my admin was like, I'm horrified. Like, how did this even happen? We're laughing, but it's also,
well, no, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen stuff like I saw.
Oh, I laughed on the call. No, for real. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy what's out there. And people just have no idea because they haven't been able to see it until now.
Yeah, I've seen like bioengineering companies that had public access servers that were doing gene sequencing that were out on the cloud and tied to their domain. It wasn't even like, hey, a cloud account, somebody had registered to their domain that nobody knew about. It's some crazy stuff that sometimes gets pulled up.
It's nuts.
They're interesting conversations though, right? Because when you can bring that up and you can bring that to that customer, it brings a level of trustedness and in relationship and things like that, of helping bring that to the table, and can really accelerate stuff. Or if you already have a really good relationship with your customer, it just even helps strengthen it and bring those conversations to light. So
for sure, I think a good security team will take this conversation as a, hey, you just gave me a lot of work to do, but at least I know about it.
And I can prioritize what order.
Exactly. Like they're gonna use this to their advantage. It might be scary, but they'll use it. And then some immature security teams I have seen like, no, thank you. Like, I don't want to know. I don't need to know. I am not interested in knowing. And that's a completely different conversation. And that tells you exactly the kind of organization that you're positioning with. And that might change your conversation as well. So both are meaningful, both are helpful, but two different approaches. Absolutely. We kind of see it all around here. So on my screen, you should see the information that Zack was just talking about with the co-branded cyber risk assessments. So you can scan those QR codes, but you are going to get this follow-up information in an email, I think going out tomorrow, as soon as we can package all of this up for you. So if you're looking at it on your phone and you're like, I wish I had this on my laptop, you're going to have it soon, but feel free to scroll through that information. But again, all of this will be customized, co-branded. You get email templates templates, everything that you need will be available to you in this pack up. So no worries there. Zach, did you have any other comments on the assessment?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're interested in that, you can if you have access to the partner portal right now. You can go into the partner portal and request that co-branding. Just so you know, it does take a little bit of time because we have, you know, our graphics teams and stuff that build it out in the service, and to do that co-branded website and the domain and everything that's there. So it takes a couple weeks once you request it, and we go through kind of a QA process to make sure you're okay with how everything looks and what's there before it goes live. So, you know, it's not just a, hey, you request it and poof, it's live and you're not happy with it. That is something we'll partner with you on, and it's really streamlined. And then, you know, with that too, we will actually help, you know, kind of jumpstart your engineers in those pieces as well to be able to do the assessment and use some of the trend engineers in the first couple. If you want us to kind of run them, you know, we can look at doing that, or, you know, we can definitely help enable your engineers to be able to do those if that's the route that you want to go, moving into the future.
Absolutely. And these are fun conversations. So resources at Trend. I mean, we're passionate about cybersecurity, and some of my attack surface conversations are like the most engaging I've had in years, because they can just go anywhere. They're all encompassing. They're not limited by protection layer products. Like, it's just a very engaging dialogue. But again, if you need help either navigating the assessment, navigating the tool, or just learning how to have this type of conversation, we are absolutely here for you. Like, please don't hesitate. We love doing this stuff. They're so much fun. Last thing, couple of QR codes for you. This one you might want to scan on your phone. So there's just a quick 1-minute survey for you to let us know how we did. Are we on topic? Are we giving you the right information? Are we too technical? Are we not technical enough? What do you need from us to be more successful? So if you have any feedback, you're more than welcome to put it in the chat, but the survey is good too. If you haven't joined the partner network and you need to sign up, that middle QR code will help you out. And then finally, these accelerator sessions, they are regular events. It might be me and Zach next time, but we do have a plethora of specialists that we pull into these depending on the topic. So I highly encourage you to register for these, just because you never know what's going to pop up that's meaningful to you. So, and if you can't attend, you always get the recording. So at the very least, sign up so you get the recording. That's my little piece of advice.
If there's a topic I was gonna say, if there's a topic you want to hear about, add that in the survey too. Ooh,
that's a good point, for sure. More than happy to. I just see a quick question about setting up a call with this team. It was the only question I saw. Yes, absolutely. You certainly can. Oh, I did have one from David, and I know we're at time. If my clients have worry-free XDR, will the assessment still help? Yes, absolutely, because worry-free does not have this capability. So this is going to provide that extra layer. Again, deploying agents isn't required. So if you're concerned about an existing worry-free install, you can still get value from this, because a lot of it comes from API or domain scanning, things like that, third-party integration. So still a very powerful, impactful, and meaningful conversation, even if they're on worry-free XDR. So no issue there. Good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So we are at time, so I am going to call it. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. If you have further questions, you can email us. Emma put a email in the chat, perfectpartner@trendmicro.com. You've got the survey. Thanks everyone so much for joining us today. We hope it was helpful. Zach and I, of course, had fun. And I'm sure we'll see you all next time.